How's it going, everybody? This is Ask Me Anything About Politics. So, if you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I'll do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. It can be like trying to learn a new language. And so, I make myself available to answer all of your questions about politics, and you don't got to worry about getting made fun of or roasted or anything like that for not knowing stuff. I don't believe in making fun of people for not knowing things or for trying to learn new things. So if you got a question about politics, just let me know in the chat. And, I will do my best to give you a great answer. There were times when I didn't know a lot about politics, and I was always really nervous around asking people questions about it because I wasn't sure if there were obvious things that everybody should know. And so you don't have to worry about that here. There's not going to be any roasting or judgments or debating of any kind. It's just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. It can be something as simple or as complicated as you like. And you don't got to worry about, oh, if I ask this, he's going to know that I'm a right wing person and he's going to yell at me. Or, oh, if I ask this, he's going to know that I don't vote and he's going to yell at me. This is not one of those shows. I don't yell at people for having different politics than me. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics because this is Ask Me Anything About Politics, everybody. Six Beetle says Kamala's still angry she lost election and calling for riots. She's not doing that, Six Beetle. I don't know what you're talking about. Also, were you upset that Donald Trump called for, a coup on January 6th? Because that is much more. There's much more of a connection between Donald Trump and January 6th happening than there is between Kamala Harris and the peaceful protests that are happening in Los Angeles. Zachary says thoughts on Assad. Assad. That's Turkey, right? Or is that the guy that got ousted from Syria? I cannot remember. I think Orban is Turkey, actually. Foreign affairs is not my strong suit, I would say. My specialty is much more domestic politics. Jathan Price says Donald Trump told. Told what? McLovin 417 says, do you agree with mass deportation or mass amnesty? Those aren't the only two options, McLovin. You can have a humane immigration policy that deports people who are criminals or who have just overstayed their welcome with the, agreement of their country of origin. You don't have to just allow everybody into the country. You don't just have to allow everybody who came here illegally to stay. But you also don't have to send people to a fucking foreign gulag in El Salvador without any fucking due process. Mikey Jovanik says the Second Amendment loving right attempt to overthrow the government unarmed. Okay, Slugger. Many of them were armed, Mikey. And yeah, I think that you're talking about January 6th. And, just because they didn't, if there were a couple of them or many of them didn't have guns, like, you really think that that wasn't still a sincere attempt to overthrow the government? Like, they were fucking beating police officers with fire extinguishers and fire and fucking flagpoles and shit like that. McLovin says yes. Generally, mass amnesty doesn't include repeat or violent offenders. Yeah, I feel like we have to be really specific with our terms here because if somebody who is on the right hears that a person on the left wants mass amnesty, what they're going to take away from that is they're going to say, oh, the left wants open borders. The left wants a bunch of criminals and rapists to come into this country because they vote Democrat, and then that'll help them get elected and get more political power. So we just have to be very specific when we're talking about this stuff. Jimmy Henson says, who was Wilson's VP? I don't know. Eddie said, is it true that people who speak about politics, political opinions can shut? Some of them, I guess. All right, welcome everybody to Ask Me Anything About Politics. You can ask me anything about politics, and I will answer in good faith if you are asking in good faith. Sometimes I get a little spicy if people are spicy at me, but most of the time I am just trying to be as nice and sincere as I possibly can. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can seem like trying to learn a new language because there's all these different like three-letter agencies, and we're referring to people just by their last names or their positions, and like what does the head of the DOJ do versus what does the head of the FBI do? What's reconciliation? What's the filibuster? All that stuff. This is a place where you can ask all those questions, and no one's going to make fun of you for being uninformed or not knowing things. If you're someone on the right and you've always wanted to ask a lefty something, like this is a good opportunity to do that. Because I'm not going to call you up here and yell at you and call you dumb or say that you're a fascist or a racist or anything. That is not what this show is all about. I'm not here to fight with people or yell with people. Alrighty. McLovin417 says they literally stormed a federal building to interfere with federal proceedings. That is accurate, McLovin. Most Wanted 804 says it's not that hard, smart one. Not really sure what you're referring to. Jathan Price says, truthfully, do you agree with the protests in LA? Obviously, the peaceful ones, yes. But the violent ones, I do not agree with the violent ones. The violent ones are 1% of the protests that are happening, and I agree with the peaceful ones. The peaceful ones are objecting to ICE acting illegally and unconstitutionally and immorally. Jen says, what do you anticipate for King's March this weekend? More unnecessary military deployment? Probably. But I think that, at least in Los Angeles, it seems as though the National Guard, which, by the way, the National Guard, the courts just said that the National Guard has to leave because the National Guard is under the purview of the governor, and the governor does not want the National Guard to be here. So they'll probably fight that. The Trump administration will probably fight that, but they should be leaving. They should be gone. But yeah, failing them leaving, it seems that they're kind of localized in the downtown Los Angeles area. But I think one of the really smart things about the No Kings protests is that it's in a bunch of different areas instead of just being like one area specifically. And the LAPD seems like they have it all handled because, again, the protests have been mostly peaceful. Let's see here. What's up, Missy? How's it going? Mal says, why doesn't Guam have reputation in the U.S.? Probably because it's a majority brown population, and we don't like giving brown people a say in things in this country. Me Volume says, why is there so much civil unrest suddenly when we've been operating the same way for 25 years? That's sort of an inaccurate thing to say, Me Volume. Like, there have been a lot of changes over the past 25 years in policy, in quality of living, in minimum wage, affordability of owning a house, benefits at work, monopolization, climate change. Like, things have gotten, global instability. Things have gotten significantly worse thanks to the first Trump administration and this Trump administration, and so people are understandably upset about this stuff. And the factors and the mitigating events are massive. There's like a lot to discuss there. But if you have specific questions, like, we can get into it. Bentley Lund says, should I travel to California? If you want to, it's a beautiful state. Cuz808 says, do you think Illinois controls the U.S. government? Or do you mean Israel? Cuz I do not think. I think it has a lot of influence, but I don't think that it controls it. Bill says, how do you get rid of politics? By voting for, serious and responsible politicians. Jafar says, do you think Iran will barbecue Israel German style? That seems a little callous. It seems as though Israel is trying to ramp up tensions with Iran in order to incentivize them to not have another nuclear deal with America. And Trump is letting it happen because he's a moron and he is really bad at this. P fucking R says, can you and Vox Media do a collab live? I could. I don't know if they're interested in doing a collab with me because they're a lot more popular than I am, but I'm definitely down for that. Annie Ruby says, is the National Guard helping ICE check status? As far as I know, the National Guard has nothing to do. Like, that's what, based on all the reporting that I've read about this, is that they're mainly just like hanging out in their hotel rooms and shit like that. I think that, I'm not really sure where the collaboration's happening. I heard that the Sheriff's Department was working more closely with ICE than the National Guard, but nothing to report there as far as I can tell. Sage says Trump is the all-American hero. What a weird thing to say, Sage. Also, ask a question or I want to boot you. Jafar says, do you think USA will be dragged into another war, unfortunately? I don't know about America's involvement in ongoing wars, like Ukraine or Israel or the Houthis or Iran or anything like that. We do tend to have our fingers in things where global stability is concerned. But Trump is much more of an isolationist, and I think he likes to throw his hands up and be like, this isn't my problem. So, my guess is that unless somebody makes it financially worthwhile for him personally to get involved, that he is going to withdraw American involvement and stuff like that, But as far as, like, he's going to continue sending money and weapons to Israel, he will potentially start sending money and weapons to Russia, depending on how those negotiations go. So, yeah, I don't really have a lot of faith in him to handle this specific moment in time. Maria Torres says, why is our government allowing Trump to continue to be president considering his criminal record? I believe it's the Air Bud rule, where it's like there's no law that says a criminal can't be president. So if people are dumb enough to vote for him, then, there you go. Thomas Sankara says, tell the people of U.S. History of Iran. I am not familiar with the full history of Iran, so sorry about that. Me Volume says, but over time, everything has always fluctuated. Don't you think it's seriously an overreaction? I don't, Me Volume, because we can talk about specific things, for example. Climate change has gotten significantly worse over the last 5 to 10 years than it has, since it was discovered. And people are really upset that nobody's doing anything about that. And people are really worried. Cost of living is we're at one of the worst cost of living crises that we've had ever in America, and people are upset that they can't afford a place to live, and they're worried about food, and they're worried about medication costs. But more specifically and more recently, ICE is just rounding up people who are citizens and detaining people without due cause or due process, without a warrant. They are deporting people that are legal residents who have no criminal history. They're sending people to fucking concentration camps in El Salvador and Libya and South Sudan. That is 100% something that everybody should be marching the street about. The fact that Trump is fucking accepting dark money bribes from foreign nationals through his meme coin is something that everybody should be fucking marching in the street over. The fact that him and Doge and Elon Musk have been shuttering government agencies without any congressional approval is something that we should all be fucking marching in the street about. But thank you very much for your question, Me Volume. I seriously hope that you will stick around and continue to engage. Resistor3713 says, there are some smart MAGA. Why do you think they support Trump when common sense tells you he's wrong? So there are two categories of people that I think are smart who support Donald Trump. There are the smart people who have just fallen for misinformation and propaganda. There are plenty of people who fall for this stuff, both on the left and the right, because it's pervasive and it is sinister. It creeps into our social media algorithms and it affects us in ways that we don't even recognize that it's happening. Very smart people that I know who follow politics have told me things that I know are factually wrong, because we all are susceptible to this. And the billionaires have put a lot of money into spreading this misinformation. That's the first group. The second group are people that fucking suck. Rich people who don't care about who gets hurt. They just want to take all the money. And people that are super fucking racist and are yep, I see brown people getting hurt and I fucking love that. The Real Random Guy says, how do you think the U.S. is going to deal with the new Iran-Israel situation? I think that Donald Trump is, above all things, lazy. And so I don't think that he is going to want to push the issue. I think that he's going to let that escalate, regardless of how dangerous or terrible it will be. I think that he will probably use it as a way to justify sending even more money and weapons to Israel, because they're going to say, Iran is browner than Israel, so they're obviously the bad guy. But yeah, I just think this is more evidence of him being shit at politics and, diplomacy. Let's see here. Jay West says, why is Maxine Waters yelling at soldiers? I have not seen her doing that, but maybe she's upset that they are in California when they shouldn't be. Ronald Proud says, rate Trump out of 10. Well, if 10 is the best and 1 is the worst, then he's a 0. Let's see here. Haywood Jabloni says, insults, no points. I make lots of points. I don't know what you're talking about. Ronaldo Prod says, so you think Biden is better than Trump? Oh, yeah, without question. Even Biden today, with prostate cancer and failing because of his old age to be able to form coherent sentences, 1,000% better than Donald Trump every fucking day of the week. SS says, Trump is definition of failing forward and why I want to outlaw all nepotism in government. I like that. Anthony Prestiani says, oh, wow, more Trump hate, so played out. I don't know. What a weird thing to say, Anthony. Sad, Rich, and Funny says, you're still pretty. Thank you. I appreciate that. Haywood Jabloni says, Biden is sleepwalking. All right, well, still better than Trump, though. Cody says, do you think the DNC will ever manage to be relevant again, or are they committed to being GOP light? I don't agree with that narrative that the DNC is GOP light. I think that there is a centrist wing that is a little bit more like the gerontocracy wing, the people that believe that if you just hang out with the DNC for a long time, you deserve to have really cushy positions in government. And then there's the more progressive wing, the more meritocracy wing, the younger wing, That's I tend to ascribe to more. But depending on who you talk to, they will tell you that the problem with the DNC is that they are both too far to the left and too far to the right, and doing too much and doing too little. They're like Schrodinger's political party. So yeah, I think that there are 100% valid criticisms that you can make about the Democratic Party, but I think a lot of it is vastly overblown and does not take into consideration how the electoral system, the media environment, and our campaign finance laws are all engineered to hurt the Democratic Party and make it harder for them to both win elections and get their message out. Fika Sika, good to see you. What's your view of actual illegal immigrants who come in through border crossings without visas? Well, immigrants are a net positive, so I'm not really dogmatic or hyperbolic about getting them out. If somebody is doing a lot of crimes and they are an illegal immigrant, they're an undocumented person, then absolutely fucking get that criminal out of here. But I am extremely open to somebody who has a family here or a job here and has roots and a community and is a valuable member of the country. Absolutely, they should have a pathway to citizenship. Me Volume says Trump is popular because he is a perfect representation of what USA is, bold, brash, and loud. I don't 100% disagree with that, Me Volume, but I think there's a lot more complicated than that. I think it has a lot more to do with billionaire influence and Russian influence and the fact that he had a TV show called The Apprentice that made him seem like he was a business genius, and the fact that ever since the 80s he was trying to incept the idea into America's head that he was like the world's greatest businessman and shit like that. Let's see here. Martin, you're a breath of fresh air also. Drake Jay Weitzer says, do you think we would be better positioned if Kamala was president? Absolutely 100%, no question. Stefan Edmondson says, we really should be upset about them tossing around senators. Yeah, we 100% should be upset about what the FBI is doing under Kash Patel. Ghost77 says, I want to see the American Patriots work the fields. Okay. Cody says, follow up on the DNC question. Do you see any situation where there is meaningful electoral reform? Yes, but in order to get there, we need to elect Democrats because the Republican Party is hostile to it because it benefits them. There were bills during the Biden administration to end partisan gerrymandering, to get the money out of politics. The Republicans vetoed every single one of those bills. So, if you care about that shit, if you want, billionaires to not decide elections, if you want things to be more fair, and for politicians to not be able to choose their voters, and for senators and representatives not to trade stocks and insider information, then you got to vote for Democrats. Let's see here. Bob321 says, I voted for Trump and regret my decision. We can do better. We can do a lot better than this. Oh, thank you for saying that, Bob321. Are you doing the work to fight against the Trump administration? The best way to undo your vote is to do work now to elect Democrats. Let's see here. Jane Marie, thank you for those hearts. I appreciate it. Cali Boy Johnny says, Democrats waste resources. No, they don't. Sam W30 says, is ICE inherently fascist? The answer is kind of yes. If you look at the things that they are doing, it really mirrors the Gestapo, and they are operating, without the need for warrants. They are denying people due process. They are ignoring legal documents like people's passports and driver's licenses. They are deporting people without hearings. They are sending them not to their country of origin. They're a rogue agency. The Obama administration tried to rein them in, and they basically just told them to go kick rocks. They should 100% be dissolved as an agency. Boom. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Let's see here. D Grand 72 says the lefties want popular vote due to New York and California. They would essentially win. D Grands, New York and California do not pick elections if we got rid of the Electoral College and we just had the popular vote. If we just had the popular vote, then everybody in America, their vote would count the exact same in the presidential election. But if you're a Republican who lives in California or New York and you vote for president and then the Democratic candidate wins that state, then your Republican vote just gets thrown in the trash. And I don't think that's fair. The same way that I don't think that a Democratic vote in Alabama should get thrown in the trash. I think everybody's vote should count the same. All right. Lesbian, I agree with that 100%. Cali Boy Johnny says Newsom ruined San Francisco. You're not asking questions, Cali Boy, so you are out of here. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. I am here to answer all of your questions about politics. This is not the show where I bring you up and yell at you and argue with you and call you dumb or try to own you so I can clip it and put it on my social media. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Cuz808 says, This Dem told me I'm evil because I'm Christian. Is that what you guys believe? No, that is not what we believe. I would advise you to ignore that person, whoever told you that. Me Volume says, How do you think ICE should operate then? America sees more immigrants than any nation. Tough. I don't know if that's accurate, Me Volume. It might be because we are a big country, and immigration is kind of our fucking thing, like bring us you're poor, you're tired, you're weary, that's the whole fucking deal with with this whole country, like we're a country of immigrants. Now, is there an issue with there being too many immigrants? Maybe. I don't think so. Like everything that I've read has made it seem like immigrants are a net positive on this country. As far as like how should ICE operate, it seems as though I mean they should have some rules. They're operating without any rules right now. They should have to go get a warrant if they want to arrest somebody. They should have to prove that that person is a criminal or undocumented if they want to deport them. They're not operating with any rules right now. So that's the issue. Mr. Squat says, "Do you think we can have a more open border but somehow prevent genuine criminals from coming in?" Yeah, I think that's possible. As far as like, not allowing criminals in, immigrants commit crimes at lower rates than naturalized citizens. So, it would be better if we just got rid of the people that are living here and replaced them with immigrants if we're really worried about crime. I'm just saying statistically. I'm being cheeky, guys. Chris says, what are your thoughts on the Rockland case? I have been extremely skeptical of all of these reports that the vote tallies were changed to give Trump the election win, but the Rockland County case is kind of raising my eyebrows a little bit. I'm not jumping to conclusions. I am waiting to see how the case shakes out, but I am the least skeptical that the voting machines were not rigged in Trump's favor than I have ever been in the past. It's a possibility. It's a possibility, and that is really worrisome. And we don't have to wait for the outcome of that case to call our representatives and tell them, hey, this is something we're really worried about. What are we doing to secure these voting machines and make sure that they are accurately tabulating all of our votes? I have not read those people, Thomas Sankara. John Bradley says, thoughts on groups that infiltrate peaceful protests and are inciting violence and looting? They should be arrested. I do not condone any kind of violence or property destruction. People are protesting peacefully, and these people come in and they either try to ruin the protest by doing violence, or they just really like violence, or they think that anarchism is better than peacefully protesting, incrementalism kind of a thing. So, but yeah, so they're breaking the law, throw them in jail. I got no problem with that. Let's see here. I don't know what Camp of Saints is. Gut says, it says that the immigration is bad and the white race is number one, yet he is in charge of ICE. Yeah, you're talking about Tom Holman, right? That guy fucking sucks. Brandon says, question, do you think any politicians truly care about us or are we just playing the game? I do. I think lots of politicians truly care and are trying to make a difference. I think that the demographics of that, you have more sincere, good politicians in the Democratic Party than you do in the Republican Party. And I have exactly two pieces of evidence for that. Number one is the Republican Party is still doing trickle-down economics, and you cannot be a serious person and still think that trickle-down economics, supply-side economics, whatever you want to call it, the Laffer curve, is still a fucking thing. Like, look around. It hasn't worked. It's not working. It's not going to work. And if you're a Republican politician and you're still fucking hyping that shit, you're full of it, or you're an idiot. So fucking get out of town, man. And also climate change. We had reports of all these Republicans in office saying behind the scenes that they were really worried about it, that they got to do something about it, and then going on Fox News and saying it's a hoax, it's fucking bullshit. That is all the evidence that I need, that party has exactly zero legitimacy to it whatsoever. But yeah, I think that there are dozens, potentially hundreds of politicians that actually do give a shit. Let's see here. Joel Slink says, has democracy run its course over 250 years? Is it time for a monarchy? No, monarchy is worse than democracy. That is definitely true. Rosalind, hi, back at you. Jackie Bloom says, what's your opinion now of our Governor Newsom? So I don't love Gavin Newsom, but I'm also judging him based on like the the scale of Democratic politicians, the scale of other Democratic governors. If I'm judging him against all politicians, he's still like in the top 10%. If like we're including people like Ted Cruz and DeSantis and Trump and shit like that, like he's still good as opposed to being bad. But he's definitely not my favorite Democrat, and it kind of annoys me the way that I can kind of see through all the things that he's doing now as being like part of his presidential campaign for 28. But I'm also really glad to have somebody who is, clearly and unequivocally standing up to the Trump administration. And he's a tall, good-looking white guy who, he speaks well. He's a good communicator. So yeah, if it was between him and a Republican, I'd still vote for him. Let's see here. Martin Covarrubias says, "Would Vance be any better?" So he wouldn't be better in the sense that he wouldn't do good things, but he would be better in the sense that he wouldn't have the same rabid fan base. That is the thing that makes Trump so dangerous, is that he has this like 30% of the country that is just willing to believe anything that he says and do whatever he tells them to do. That he has all of these January 6th insurrectionists that he pardoned who are now like operating as his personal army. The cult of personality is what is most dangerous about Trump. And when he's gone, that is going to be significantly deflated, if not completely dematerialized. Tyro, good to see you again. Says so. Newsom is your Schrodinger Democrat. Yeah. I mean, every Democrat is the Schrodinger's Democrat. John Bradley says, "What about Iran bombing Tel Aviv? Will there be an end to war in the Middle East?" I mean, definitely not with Trump and Republicans in charge. They are bad at diplomacy. They're bad at this. We had a nuclear deal with Iran that Trump threw away just because it had Obama's name on it, and he's a racist, selfish idiot. Marcia said, "Did ICE hire January 6th insurrectionists and white supremacists?" Somebody asked me about that on the live stream yesterday, and I don't know if it is an accurate news report. I haven't seen it reported anywhere else. I would say that it tracks, but I don't know that to be factually accurate. Rosalind says, "How do you feel about what ABC did to Moran?" That's a tough one. I mean, like, you do want your reporters to have the auspice, the presentation of being impartial and stuff like that. So I don't know. If a person would be, you know, excoriated the same way or fired from ABC the same way if he did it to a Democratic president. But I have heard the argument that that's the case. So I don't know. Like, I do think that we need more reporters who are speaking truthfully about the shittiness of this administration. I think it's probably closer to the fact that ABC is just scared of Trump, and they're scared about him using the power of the presidency to harm them or harm their profits in some way. But I also have heard the argument that, like, reporters shouldn't do things like that. So I kind of fall down on the side of ABC is, acquiescing and being kind of shitty there. Me Volume says Obama's deal with Iran is what funded their nuclear capabilities. That is inaccurate, Me Volume. The Obama nuclear deal that we had with Iran, I think it was called the JCPOA, that was going to keep Iran from having a nuclear weapon or even enough nuclear material for a nuclear weapon for at least 2 decades. And now they have enough enriched material for 8 nuclear weapons already. And that was just if we did nothing else. The JCPOA was supposed to be the starting position, and then we could build from there in order to, make sure that they did not enrich enough uranium for a nuclear weapon. But yeah, the idea that is the reason why they have nuclear weapons because the Obama deal is completely factually inaccurate. B volume. They weren't going to oblige regardless. Now they have the money and the capabilities. B volume. There were things in the deal that were going to force them to oblige by the deal. They were not given a chance to oblige to the deal. Trump got in and just exited the deal for no reason. I hope that you will do a little bit more research into this Me volume, because what you just said is just like straight up right-wing propaganda that is like fully inaccurate. Mr. Squat says, "I see good points on both sides." I would like to argue that there are no good points on the right side of the American political spectrum. But let's talk about it more specifically, my man, Mr. Squat. What's something that you think is a good policy that happens on the right side of American politics? With the the economy, with immigration, with the environment, with workers' rights, like anything. Just Oof 23 says, why does it feel like we are speed running extinction? Because the Republican Party is working with the billionaire class in order to take over all the levers of power and hasten a type of culling apocalypse that removes a bunch of the population so that there are fewer of us and we are more desperate and won't be able to fight back against them and will be turned into a class of wage slave serfs who will all be fucking dying of cancer from the chemical runoff from all their fucking factories, and they'll just get to be eating caviar 3 meals a day on their fucking mega yachts, taking their private jets to their mega mansions, and they won't have to abide by any rules. They can fucking hunt us for sport, and keep us as fucking sex slaves in their palatial dungeons, and we would have no legal recourse or be able to do anything about it. That's the reason why I just oof. Read Dark Money. Everybody, mark your bingo cards. Read Dark Money. Dean L. Fathiru says, as a citizen of America and I have a sign that says impeach Trump, can I be arrested in D.C.? So normally the answer to that question is no. But we are operating in a different and dangerous time where Donald Trump is, threatening to throw people in jail just for being his political opponents. He is threatening to throw people in jail just for peacefully protesting. He is attempting to militarize law enforcement so that he can just throw anybody in jail that disagrees with him. So I think you're probably safer holding up that sign in any one of the other cities that is currently having a No Kings protest tomorrow, which I think everybody should go to. But yeah, if you are the kind of person that wants to I don't know, be on the front lines, I would guess DC is kind of like the front lines right now because Trump is supposed to have his and he's already said he's going to go hard on anybody protesting the military parade. So I would not go there. I'm a little concerned about the potential for violence and retribution. Ocean says, "Oh my God, don't say that." Don't say what, Ocean? Just Oof says, okay, real question. Why doesn't any in Congress or the Supreme Court already start an impeachment? Because the Republicans are fully in charge of both of those branches. The Supreme Court, it has a conservative supermajority, and the Republicans are fully in control of Congress. And the Republican Party, the elected Republicans, are either scared of Trump, scared of physical danger, or scared of getting primaried, or they are on board with his authoritarian, billionaire-friendly bullshit agenda. And that's the reason why. If they were abiding by the letter of the law, Trump would be in jail right now. But they're not. The Supreme Court is carrying water for him and the Republican Party, and the Republican politicians are either too scared to stand up to him, or they are on board with all of the fascist dictatorship that he's currently doing. All right. Oh no, my live access got suspended. Let's see here. I need to appeal this. Sometimes this happens where I will get reported for misinformation because Republicans do not like it when I tell the truth about things. So I'm going to have to dip out of TikTok for a hot second so that I can wait for that appeal to happen. But let's see here. We're about 30 minutes in, so I'm definitely going to try to get back on the TikTok stream. But for now, yeah, anybody on Twitch or on YouTube, this is the time to ask those questions. Miss Juicy Fruit, that's not a question about politics. Burn Slot says, how many Dems have died in office this month? I think it's 4, but I could be wrong about that. I would need to double check those numbers. All right, let me see if I have won my appeal yet. But yeah, this happened to me once before this week. I am a regular target of the right-wing trolls because they do not like me telling the truth on the internet. All right, so let's see if I've won this appeal yet. But Fika Sika says, what about U.S. inviting the Pakistani terrorist-in-chief to the U.S. parade? They have U.S. Designated terrorists partying together with the Pakistani army, so why invite him? I'm actually unfamiliar with that specific person, Fika Sika. Foreign policy is where I have the largest holes in my, in my information, so I apologize for that. Sorry, I'm just double checking on my suspension real quick, seeing if Let's see here. Yeah, I'm still waiting for the outcome of the appeal. Burnslot says, who reprogrammed John Fetterman's brain? That is a really good question. I don't know what fucking happened to that dude. But yeah, I do not care for the way that he has been representing Pennsylvania as a senator. So I think that Pennsylvanians should primary him and get a better Democrat to run for office. All right. So yeah, this is Ask Me Anything About Politics, everybody. If you got any questions about politics, just let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you are first trying to learn about it. Um, uh, so this is the place where you can ask all those questions, and you don't have to worry about getting roasted or debated or, made fun of. I'm not going to try to own you on the live stream. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. And I'm back. And I'm back on the live stream on TikTok, everybody. This is very exciting. I love winning appeals. I don't mind, because then I get a fresh new audience on TikTok. This is Ask Me Anything About Politics, everybody. So if you got any questions about politics, let me know in the chat, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know that politics is really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it, so I am here to answer all of your questions, all of your good faith questions about politics. This is not the show where I call people up and I yell at them for having different opinions about politics. This is not the show where I try to own people and call them stupid for voting differently than me. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Maybe you're somebody on the right and you've always wanted to ask somebody on the left a question like, why are you like this? Why do you like murdering babies? Why do you dance in the moonlight and cover the blood of the innocent on your naked Jewish bodies? And I will happily answer you that question and tell you that none of that stuff is true. Martin says, did the Trump administration shut you down? No, but right-wing trolls do regularly report my channel for misinformation. I almost always win the appeal because I am not spreading misinformation. But yeah, sometimes it's a little hiccup in the live stream. But I don't mind because then I just get to pop back on. Burnslot says, should California join Canada? Probably not. As somebody who resides in California, I wouldn't mind suddenly being a Canadian citizen. It would make my life a lot less stressful, of course. But yeah, I think we're probably better off maintaining, because yeah, for reasons, I guess. I don't know. Let's see here. Eru Abraham says thoughts on Israel's attack of Iran. So Bibi Netanyahu, who is currently in charge of the Israeli government, is a far-right extremist, and he is attempting to annex and take over all of the Middle East, turn it all into Israel, and everybody else can go fucking die. And he does not want America negotiating another nuclear treaty with Iran. And he tried to fight against it when Obama did it in his term. Obama was successful in passing a nuclear treaty with Iran that was it was a very good treaty. It wasn't perfect. There were concessions in it, but it was a very good treaty. And Trump threw it in the garbage because he's dumb, racist, who he didn't want anything with Obama's name to stick. So now we are 8 years later, and the Trump administration is trying to renegotiate basically the JCPOA, basically the same deal that Obama had. And Netanyahu doesn't want that because he does not want peace in the Middle East. He wants war because then Israel can continue to spread and take territory and ethnically cleanse the surrounding countries. And so he fired missiles at Iran in order to instigate them and try to make peace talks, the Iran deal talks, fall apart. And I don't know if he's going to be successful, but I do not have any faith that Trump can has any diplomatic skills to actually navigate this fucking miasm, this fucking shit show that he has created. Let's see here. I can't read your name, but it looks like Eli the Judge or something. Says, what is the big beautiful bill? The big beautiful bill is a spending bill, or a bill that has to do with the economy or the budget, that essentially cuts taxes for billionaires and raises taxes on everybody else. It is a massive wealth transfer from the poor to the rich, and it is a terrible bill that would triple the deficit or some shit like that. It is bad. It should fail. If you have a Republican senator, you should call them up and tell them, do not vote for that bill. It is terrible. Let's see here. Nancy Harthan says, Trump fired at Iran? No, Israel fired at Iran. Phoenix Boone says, what do you think about the clean break memo written in 96 for Netanyahu? I'm actually unfamiliar with that one, so sorry about that. Phoenix Boone says, do you think it has any relevance to what's happening today? Again, that's not my area of expertise. I'm so sorry. Foreign affairs is where I have the largest gaps in my knowledge, unfortunately. Monaldo says, you support Palestine. I support the citizens of Palestine, and I support the citizens of Israel. And I do not support Hamas, and I do not support the government of Israel. Let's see here. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for your comment. All right, welcome everybody to the live stream. I answer questions about politics. This is not a show where I fight people or debate people or call you up and then roast you and then debate you and then own you and then clip that for my social media. I am just here to answer all of your good faith questions about politics. Demir says, could kebabs cause world peace? They probably could. They're delicious. Minaldo says, you think World War III is going to happen? Probably not, but I do believe that global instability will continue to increase so long as Trump and his fucking shadow Secretary of State are just like flying around, not putting out fires. Quality Card Break says, thoughts on Israel attacking Iran? Israel is trying to increase tensions in the area so that the nuclear talks fail between America and Iran. He wants there to be more war and conflict so that he can continue to take over countries in that area, kill anybody who isn't an Israeli, he's a really shitty dude. He's doing really shitty things. Mikey says, free Palestine. Yes. Bitch Pizza 2 says, do you support ICE? No, I do not. Sean Feeney says, why do so many voters think Republicans' strong economy despite all evidence to the contrary? Because, say it with me, everybody, misinformation and propaganda. Read the book Dark Money. That tells you all about how the billionaires have been using their money to spread narratives that support the Republican Party and convince people to not vote for Democrats, etc. Sorry, that song kind of fell apart towards the end, everybody. But yeah, that's basically it. For decades, billionaires have been pumping a lot of money into our media and now our social media in order to convince people about narratives surrounding the political parties, that the Republican Party is better for immigration and the economy and national security, and the Democratic Party is wasteful and feckless and ineffective and a bunch of weenies who only care about people's pronouns. All right. Minaldo says the Zionists control the U.S. government. I don't think that is an accurate or productive thing to say, Minaldo. I also don't think that everybody has the same definition of what a Zionist is. So I would encourage you to be more specific and also to try to be more productive with the things that you say and type. Mikey says, how do you feel about the protests happening? I like protests. I like peaceful protests. I mean, people should be protesting ICE because they are acting illegally and immorally and unconstitutionally. And I fully agree with the peaceful protests. I don't condone any kind of violence or property destruction. Beto4757 says, can I ask a stupid question? No such thing as a stupid question, my guy. What has Donald successfully done as president that changed Americans? I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Like, do you mean things that he was able to accomplish that changed America? Do you mean good things that he did that changed America? Because honestly, I push back against this idea that if you're going to have any legitimacy in political commentary, you have to show your bipartisan bona fides by saying something nice about their side. But what if the other side is John Wayne Gacy? Like sometimes worse things are just worse and better things are just better. This isn't like, it's just politics and difference of opinion and things like that. It's like, no, one party is fucking so unbelievably corrupt that they are letting their president have a fucking meme coin, which is allowing unlimited amounts of dark money donations from foreign nationals that we will never even fucking hear about. He accepted a $400 million plane from Qatari royals. Fucking unbelievable. They're renditioning citizens to fucking concentration camps in foreign nations that are led by dictators and warlords and shit like that. Like, there's no equivalent of that on the left. So it's like, yeah, do you want me to give Donald Trump his props for eliminating the penny or citing the the Fresh Start prison reform bill? It's like, I mean, I guess I could, but it seems kind of unproductive to sort of like, I don't know, treat the parties as though they are the same when they are not. One is way, 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 way worse than the other one. Ronaldo says, do you think 9/11 was done by the government? No, I'm pretty sure It was done by Saddam. No, not Saddam Hussein. Osama bin Laden. Beto4757 says, "What has he accomplished as president that has made Americans great again?" I do not believe that he has done anything to make Americans great again. Let's see here. Ebby, Judge, whatever your name is. Why did the California senator get forcibly removed from the Homeland Security Conference? Because the FBI is acting like the Gestapo right now. He was telling everybody he was a senator, and they decided to throw him in jail as a intimidation tactic and to communicate that law enforcement is going to be politically motivated going forward. Minaldo says, "Are you a Democrat or Republican?" I am a Democrat. Carol Mazik says, "Dark Side by who? Dark Money by Jane Mayer." Meme Walker says, "Should taxpayer monies be spent to give immigrants free housing, food, and college?" I think that taxpayer money should be spent to take care of people that need to be taken care of, whether they are immigrants or Americans, whether they are poor, marginalized, middle class, whatever. The only people that don't need help are billionaires, and that is what the Republican Party is trying to use tax dollars to help. That is all they're trying to. They're only trying to help billionaires. That is all they're trying to do, and fuck everybody else. Me Volume, good to see you. After how they did Bernie in 2016, I've become extremely critical of the Democratic Party. So Me Volume, there are 100% valid criticisms of the Democratic Party. They do tend to put their weight behind more centrist candidates. They do tend to put their weight behind candidates that have been with the party for longer. They have this you've been with us the longest, so you've earned your spot kind of mentality. And some of the older, more centrist characters will say stupid things, like Nancy Pelosi going out there and saying that she didn't think it was bad that people in the government did insider trading. So I understand, like, there are those valid arguments, but the Democratic platform is still a great platform, and there are still great politicians. The majority of the Democratic Party is still great politicians, people that actually want to make a positive difference for their constituents. And, even if you're just voting against the Republican Party, it is still worth it to vote for the Democratic Party up and down the ballot, besides the fact that they do have a good platform and a bunch of very good politicians. So, yeah, I understand. I get it. I can understand that frustration. I canvassed for Bernie in 2016, and I was very upset that he did not win that primary. And, I'm honestly skeptical that the efforts that the DNC did to support Hillary Clinton in 2016 actually made that big of a difference, because Clinton won that primary by so many more votes. Like, I really don't think the DNC had that much of an effect on it. Rosalind, 1954, says, "Do you believe Kamala actually won the election?" I don't, but I am open to it. I am looking at this Rockland County case, and I am waiting to see how things shake out. But yeah, I am not jumping to conclusions until we see otherwise, until we have hard evidence that the vote tallies were changed. Then we need to accept the fact that Kamala Harris lost the election. Ralph Dobertberger says, "Who asked Trump to speak on January 6th? I don't know. Probably Mike Stone." Let's see here. Gingy Pep says the Democrats blocked him. Blocked who? Bernie Sanders? They didn't. They tried to, but they didn't. It was the voters that blocked Bernie Sanders. Gus Gunnister says, "What do you think about Tim Walz?" I think he's great. Ilana Iris says, "Hi, do you know if there's anything we can say to the police if they try to arrest us for protesting?" I don't know if there's anything you can say to, like, try to get the police to, like, not arrest you or anything. But it's a risk, that is part of the risk of protesting, and it is dangerous. It is more dangerous to protest now that Trump is in office than if he wasn't in office, and it is one of a bajillion reasons why I was telling everybody that they should get out there and vote for Democrats, that shit like this wouldn't happen. But yeah, it's definitely a risk. I would just say, what I would say? I would say nothing, because anything that you say to a cop can and will be used against you in a court of law. So I would just say, keep your mouth shut, just say the word lawyer over and over again, and yeah, good luck out there, campers. Gus Gunnarsson says, "Do you think the protests are pretty peaceful?" I mean, it's not about what I think, it's about what the data says, and the data is that 99% of these protests have been peaceful. Gingy Pep says, "No Kings demonstration this weekend. Where will you go?" I will be at the West Hollywood No Kings protest. Very excited about it. Harris says, "Mamdani or Cuomo?" Mamdani all day, Cuomo fucking never. That guy can go fucking kick rocks. Tom Tom says, "How do you feel about most of Congress being bought by AIPAC?" Tom, that's kind of overstating things. I think that APAC has a lot of influence over our government, but to say that they are owned is overstating the fact, and it kind of devalues the point that you're trying to make. Like, let's get the money out of Congress, let's get the money out of government and our politics entirely. But when you focus specifically on APAC, you sound like a conspiracy theorist, and you also sound a little anti-Semitic. So, no hate, no tea, no shade, just letting you know. Let's see here. Me Volume says, I'm just against a two-party system now. That by itself is divisive. Trump just escalated it. So, Me Volume, I understand people have some very valid criticisms of the two-party system. I don't know that it is as bad that people give it credit for. I think it's kind of handy that when I see a Democratic politician, I know that they are most likely pro-worker, believe in climate change, pro-taxing billionaires, pro-workers' rights, regulations to stop pollution and shit like that. And when I see a Republican candidate, I'm like, all right, well, this guy likes trickle-down economics, and they're not going to do anything to help marginalized communities, and they are against gay marriage, and they don't care about gun violence and shit like that. Now, if you want there to be more choices, if you want to get away from the two-party system, what we need is ranked choice voting, because otherwise, anybody that's running against the traditional two parties would just serve to be a spoiler candidate. And the Republican Party does weaponize that. Like, they will fund third-party candidates like Jill Stein to be spoiler candidates in general elections. The only way that you can combat that is by having ranked choice voting. And Republicans are hostile to the idea of ranked choice voting. They actually have a bill in the House that you can look up. You can give it a Google. It is called House Resolution 3040, and it is Republicans' attempt to ban ranked choice voting. So if you care about getting rid of the two-party system, if you care about getting ranked choice voting and opening up our politics to not just Republicans and Democrats, I got bad news for you. You got to suck it up and vote for Democrats, because they are the only ones who are going to be open to that happening. We already have ranked choice voting in a lot of blue cities and states, and that is because Democrats are in charge over there. So I hear you, Me Volume. Like, I get it. And I should say this, like, I'm sure that you are a very smart and well-informed person, but there has been a lot of money and effort put behind spreading narratives like what you are saying about how both sides are equally bad. The two-party system is so bad, you don't want to participate. You're so mad at the DNC for what they did to Bernie Sanders. Like, anything that incentivizes people to either vote for Republicans or not vote is billionaire-funded propaganda. And I know a lot of good people have fallen for it. I'm not saying that you did. I'm sure that these are opinions that you have organically. But I think it should concern you that this opinion that you may have come upon yourself organically is something that billionaires are putting a lot of money into spreading, because they know that the Republican Party helps them. They know that the Republican Party gets them more money and cuts regulations for their businesses, so they don't have to worry about cleaning up any chemical runoff from their factories that give all of us fucking cancer and shit like that. So yeah, I hope that you found that informative. Me Volume. All right, let's see here. Tyro, good to see you. Burn Slots, do you think the average American is well-informed enough to know what is going on right now? No, Burn Slots, but I don't believe that it is their fault. I believe that a lot of money, time, and energy has been put into devaluing and defunding education, and has been put into spreading misinformation and propaganda on social media. And so, yeah, people get tricked, people get conned. It happens on the left, it happens on the right. Some data suggests that it happens more on the right than it is on the left, but that is immaterial. So yeah, I don't think it's their fault. I don't think Americans are inherently stupid. I just think that they have been put into a position where they, are not able to get the education in order to see through bullshit. Alrighty, let's see here. Luciana says, are trans people really a problem in the U.S.? They are not. The fact that Republicans are trying to convince people of that case is not accurate. Thomas Dean says, I put a pregnancy spell on you. I deflected and put it somewhere else. MVM says, just like you're doing. I'm not spreading misinformation or propaganda. Gus Gunnarsson says, thoughts on the Trump and Elon beef? I never really bought it. I was confident that they were going to get back together. They seem like they are back together right now. But it was fun to watch. It's fun to watch the two shittiest people in the world hit each other with their fists. Let's see here. Motion Light says, I need a part-time job, bro. Put a brother on. Restaurant work, man. I love restaurant work. If you're a young person, it's really fun to do restaurant work. I think it's very instructive, and it teaches you empathy for your fellow man. Tony S. says, as an ex-reality TV producer, it's so obvious all Trump does is stunts. It's all theater. Completely agree with that, Tony. Preppy Smurf says it's all a game of chess and we citizens are the pieces pitted against each other. You're half right, Preppy, because there is a difference between the political parties. There is a difference between politicians on the left and the right. But it is true that in addition to billionaires funding propaganda and misinformation that convinces people to either vote for Republicans or not vote at all, they also spread misinformation and propaganda that convinces us that everybody except them is their enemy. They convince people on the left-wing voters, that right-wing voters are their enemy. They convince progressive voters that centrist voters are their enemies, and vice versa. They convince right-wing voters that their enemy is trans kids and immigrants and poor people and brown people, when the reality is that we are all the 99%. And the billionaire class, paired up with the Republican Party, have been waging a silent war against us to fuck us all over, ruin our lives, make us desperate, make us poor, make us sick. Because when we are, then their power is not challenged. Oh, all right, scrolling down to the bottom. Finch is still yapping. What's your take on abortion? I am pro-choice, but if you are pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because the Republican Party doesn't do anything to actually decrease the number of abortions. Making abortions illegal does not decrease the number of abortions. It just makes them more dangerous for women. There are things that decrease the number of abortions, and they are things that the Republican Party is hostile to, like raising the minimum wage, family planning, paid family leave, free child care, access to contraceptives, things like that. But because Republicans aren't about that, it seems like what they're actually doing is increasing accidental pregnancy and forcing women to have those babies because it makes them more desperate. Oh, excuse me. Burnslot says, what is the best way to keep dark money propaganda out of our news media? That is an excellent question, Burnslot, and I actually do not know. I think that we need to focus our attention on organizations that are publicly funded, like NPR and BBC and PBS, so that we are avoiding profit motive or billionaire influence. But yeah, I'm open to other ideas because it is a massive problem that really the only cure to it just seems to be making people aware that it is happening. Nunya says, is it conservatives or liberals that are toxic in your opinion? So no voters are toxic. Politicians and talking heads on the right are toxic, and on the left, either not toxic or much less toxic. Let's see here. Gus Gunnarsson says, why do you think so many rural Americans support Trump and urban Americans are on the left? I think that people tend to move to cities when they graduate college and they want to be in like active work environments. I think maybe being surrounded by other people and diverse groups of people like you find in cities, maybe makes people more empathetic and less otherizing of people that don't look like them or share the same beliefs or stuff like that. I think that in a lot of rural districts that are solidly red, you have seen a lot of defunding of education and devaluing of education. So maybe that's another part of it. But yeah, I think that's it's a massive question that you could write entire books about, Dan Blacker, good to see you again, says outlawed abortion also ensures an impoverished laboring class for billionaires. That is also accurate. Angel Sierra Orozco says, why do people cry about immigration but won't help immigrants get their citizenship? Because a lot of these people are full of shit. A lot of them say that they just want them to come the right way and then make it impossible for them to come the right way. And, then say, we don't like immigrants, but then they fly a whole bunch of white South Africans over because those immigrants are good for, some reason. So, yeah. Me volume, virtue signaling is the reason why being around more people means looking for acceptance. Me volume, you're making some kind of shitty comments here, me volume. Like, you were here in good faith for a while, it seems, and now it really just kind of seems like you're throwing stones at progressives and progressive ideals, So I'm beginning to be suspicious of your intentions here, me volume. Yeah, but it's not virtue signaling if you really believe it, Like, if I'm in a room with a bunch of different people and I'm, saying progressive shit, it's not because I'm trying to make them like me. It's because I believe it, and I think that we all basically agree with each other, But I mean, I do stand up in red states, so I say this shit everywhere. Let's see. That's pretty funny, Gus. All right. Any other questions, everybody? Feel free to put them in the chat. I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate your support and your questions and your gifts and your likes and your shares. Who Flive says, who do you support? I support the 99%. J Rod says, fall of the MAGA cult world is waking up and hating Trump and his maggots. Please don't spam the comments, J Rod. But from your lips to God's ears, it's not going to happen by itself. We have to do the work to make it happen. So let's all do the work, everybody, and we can make it so that we have better government, better politicians, better country. We don't have as much fucking chaos and global instability, and we're not suffering through a cost of living crisis that the president's doing exactly zero fucking things to try to solve, because we don't have to live like this. We don't have to live worrying about rent and food and medical costs. Like, we can have a better country if we just fucking do the work, guys. Trevor Mullen says, have you seen Iran has retaliated and fired ballistic missiles into Israel just a few moments ago? I didn't see that, but that is, obviously concerning. So, yeah, I just pray that calmer heads prevail, John Bradley says, what were the details of the immigration bill that was proposed under Biden that Trump torpedoed? So it was largely a wish list of Republican ideas as far as like strengthening the border, more money for more border patrol and things like that. But there were things in there about pathway to citizenship and trying to solve the root causes of immigration, making sure that we had a more humane immigration policy, hiring more asylum judges and immigration judges and things like that. But yeah, it was a relatively conservative bill, which is why it was so fucking insane that the Republicans that fucking wrote the thing voted against it, because Trump wanted to run on that as an issue in the 2024 election, which is reason 1,050,000,056 that Republicans have exactly zero credibility on every issue, and nobody should ever vote for any of them ever again. Skis351 says, name one pro and one con about Trump. I will not name a pro around Trump. I do not believe in bipartisanship for bipartisanship's sake. If you got two candidates and one of them is John Wayne Gacy, you don't need to say something nice about John Wayne Gacy. You can just recognize that worse things are worse and better things are better. And yeah, it's all cons. He's a con, he's all cons, etc. Claire says, I'm already emotionally exhausted and we're only 6 months in. I feel you, Claire, but it's important to do your self-care as well. My wife and I are going on a date tonight. We're going to get burgers. We're going to go see a movie. I do this fucking 5 days a week, and so I think I earned it, And then we're going to the protest on Saturday, So self-care and hope are part of the resistance movement as well. So don't forget to do that, everybody. Don't worry about it, Trevor. Alrighty. Kevin says, bang on a host. Well, don't let my wife or you say that you want to bang on me. I want to thank everybody for being here. If you have any questions that I was not able to answer on the live stream, or you think of other things later, you can DM me. My DMs are open. You can hit me up on my Discord. The link should be in my bio. You should email me through my website. That is also a place that I am actively open to communications. I don't care who you voted for. I am happy to engage with people who disagree with me politically. That includes you, me, Volume. So yeah, if there are any other questions that you come up with, please feel free to reach out. Join the Discord. If you want to do the work, there is great information there on doing the work to fight against the Trump administration, against the Republican Party, and I hope that you will all do it, because the more people that do this work, the less work that we all have to do. My regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. That schedule will be posted at my website, as well as my live stand-up schedule. I am a stand-up comedian. I am currently on a little bit of a break because I just had 3 tours in a row in the first 6 months. So I am on vacation, baby. Still doing these fucking live streams 5 days a week during my vacation. All right. Anything else that I want to add? Just, please do the work, everybody. Please. The only way that we win this is if we do the work, because the information environment is fully in the clutches of the billionaire class. There is no organization in the world that has the power or the inclination to save us. We have to do it ourselves. So join us, recruit other people to join the fight, do the work. You don't have to do all the work, just do as much as you can. And that's how we get out of this. We just need 3.5% of the population activated peacefully, and then we win. Alrighty, Rena, thank you for being here. You're the best. Loda says, how can people talk politics with you when you're one-sided? I'm not one-sided, Loda. I think I have a pretty accurate idea of the values and the outcomes of both political parties. Let's see here. Alrighty. David Campbell, glad that you are going to the protest. Brian Palmieri 4 says, vote any way you want. It does not matter. It does matter, Brian Palmieri. Billionaires and the Republican Party want you to think that voting doesn't matter because they don't want people to vote. They don't want people engaged in our politics. They want people to think that it's futile, that resistance is hopeless. But I say, fucking suck my butthole, you weird ass fucking dorks. I'm gonna do the work. I'm gonna have hope. I'm gonna vote. Because you don't fucking get to tell me what to do. So there we go. BB fan, good to see you again. Sorry I missed you. Hopefully you are staying safe. You're participating in No Kings. Yep, going to West Hollywood tomorrow. Me Volume says, love the live, brother. Most political lives are horrendous. I'm trying to be the change, homeboy or homegirl. David Cambook says, look what they did to Padilla. Yeah, it's fucking worrisome, my man. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Have an excellent weekend. Do the work and do the self-care. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Hit me up if you need. I will see you next week. Same bat time, same bag channel. All right, goodbye, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye.